find it very hard to believe. I guess, Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Where there are people in the 80s going, I really need to know what Pauline Kael thinks of The Land Before Time.
Yeah, or
like no.
The big movie of the weekend is Disney's live-action remake of Snow White, the most canceled movie online, a movie that only Jason has seen, because Josh and I bowed out of going to see it. Jason, I don't know if you have any hot takes about Snow White. Maybe it's a secret masterpiece. I got from when we went to Warfare the other night that you did not seem that thrilled about Snow White, but I'm gonna give you a couple minutes to spitball, and then I wanna propose a question that I've been ruminating on all week.
That sounds good. I would say that Snow White is perfectly competent. It's not. I mean, like, as these Disney animation to live action remakes go, it's in the top half. There have been some that have been absolute disasters, in my opinion. That said, I'm sort of like, why? What's the point? I don't know what we're doing with this film. There is a lot of it that is new. The story has been updated. I mean, it's not just a story of a beautiful woman who can't do anything by herself and needs a prince and folks to help her out. Rachel Zegler is the highlight of the film. There's no question about that. Her voice is great. All her songs are pretty good. So the film's been updated. There's some new songs, but I don't know why this film exists. It's clearly aimed at younger kids. Like, a lot of the action, a lot of the characters are so paper thin that you're like, okay, this is for a 6-year-old and 8-year-old. This is not for even like a 12, 13-year-old, and certainly not for adults. I thought the film, my hottest take is, so Disney supposedly spent $270 million, something like that on it. How did they spend that much money? First of all, it doesn't look that great. It looks fine. It doesn't look that great. I know that Disney's like, oh, it's real, it's live action as opposed to animated, but frankly, almost everything in it other than the human beings looks animated, looks computer generated. Like, they were standing on green sets for the most part.
So this is an Alice in Wonderland situation.
Yeah, so frankly, I mean, like, it's the idea of taking something animated and making it real life doesn't exist in this movie. But then the other thing is, so if you're going to spend $250+ million on this film, Disney, how about you pay for some star power on screen? Because other than Rachel Zegler, West Side Story, she's not a huge name, but she's great. Gal Gadot, who is Wonder Woman, but who is not great in this film. There's no one else recognizable in the cast. And there are a number of like side characters that would have been ideal for a somewhat famous comedian, to inject a little bit of humor into the film.
You want Bill Burr to play Dopey is what you want.
I mean, who doesn't want Bill Burr to play Dopey? No, there's a huntsman character. There's a captain of the guard for the queen. There's the king. I mean, there are all these little characters who, if you'd put someone with a little more charisma, a little more star power in that role, and I'm not talking about spend $10 million, to get Pierce Brosnan or something to come in and do it. I'm talking, you spent $250 million, spend $250,000 for someone to come in and shoot for 2 days, because these are not big roles. I don't understand why Disney didn't do this.
As we're going to discuss in just a little bit, there are plenty of actors available who will say yes to anything for about 3 days of shooting.
That is true. That is true. A lot of people looking to, get that extra Porsche, maybe put that third kid through college, buy that patio for their summer home.
I mean, the bottom line is it's a film where I don't know why it's there. And the other thing I would say about it is this. Snow White? Like, is Snow White still a big relevant, the kids need to see Snow White? I get when you remake The Lion King. I get when you remake Moana. These are titles that are like consistently among the most popular titles on Disney Plus. Snow White just doesn't. I mean, like, when was the last time a little kid was like, "Ooh, I need to watch Snow White over and over and over"? It's not relevant anymore.
Fascinating conversation you and I had the other day, because I was mentioning, like, I probably saw the original Disney Snow White once as a child. It scared me, and then it was just like, it was not one of the ones that was on rotation growing up. Like, it was much more like the Renaissance stuff like Little Mermaid and Aladdin and Lion King. Like I don't even think we had a copy of Snow White on VHS growing up at all.
Yeah, Josh, you got kids. You would remember this. I mean, is Snow White something that mattered to you guys?
Snow White was never really in the rotation for us either. Back in the quarantine days, one of the only sort of faint silver linings to that cloud was I got to, like, I say entertain, my daughter said torture her with, like, sort of nightly film festivals because none of us had school, so she kind of got to go through our physical media library, and we started with the obvious ones, the Disney animated stuff. And I didn't try to do the overbearing dad thing about, like, we're watching this. I'm like, just go upstairs, pick something, we'll watch whatever you want to watch. Snow White never came into the conversation. I was like, you want to do the Disney princess things? And, we did Brave, we did, Little Mermaid. Snow White never came up. And so I think it's a situation where it's one of those movies that, yes, obviously we respect it, we admire it because of what it represents to, animation as a whole and the film industry as a whole. But as far as aging well, yeah, it's 75 minutes, and I would argue that's about a half hour too long.
Well, and we're seeing. I was going to say we're seeing the impact, the result of all this in the box office numbers. It's going to do 40-something million, they say, this weekend, which is fine. It's a decent number. I mean, box office has been terrible. We can't get even $10 million at box office for a great film like Black Bag. So on the one hand, hey, Snow White doing 40 million, great, but 40 million against a budget north of 250. Disney's losing money on this, a lot of money.
Well, I don't know. We said the same thing about Mufasa, because it started small and kind of hung in there, but Mufasa didn't have Minecraft movie opening up in a couple of weeks, and I don't know about the quality of the Minecraft movie, but if you're just looking for stuff that parents can get the kids out of the house to see, that they recognize the name, that's at least one big weekend taken away.
Yeah. So
word of mouth may kill that one later, but
I mean, do the children care? I mean, I guess if the word's getting around on the playground, like, yeah, the Minecraft movie sucks, but like
the word on the playground.
Yeah. As we all know, children, great barometers of artistic quality.
So this I'm glad you brought that up. This brings me to a hot take I had. I've been stewing on this. I even kind of dipped it into the waters of TikTok just to see what the people were thinking, and a lot of the comments I got back were shut the F up. But
not on TikTok.
Not
what?
on TikTok. But you know what? I'm just gonna come out and say it. We got way too many grown ass adults getting way too upset about children's movies. We're film critics, so
100%.
We needed to touch on the Snow White thing. But it's wild to me that there is so much cultural baggage and importance that we're putting on a live action Snow White movie, and the fact that my algorithm keeps feeding me people that are everyone at the YouTube channel for the content. They're like, we gotta go see Snow White, and we got people that are complaining where does Rachel Zegler understand the importance and the responsibility of the Snow White story? And me being like, you're an adult. Go see the Bong Joon-ho movie. You know what I watched this past weekend? I rented the new Paul Schrader movie, which wasn't great, but I would be a way more interesting conversation than talking about Snow White with three other dudes. I'm just a little how broken are we as a culture where we adults are needing to get stuff out of children's movies, and it kind of gets to the Marvel thing a little bit that we talked about a few weeks ago, where it's Captain America 4 doesn't need to be a political thriller. If you're gonna do that, go see an actual political thriller. But I don't know.
Yeah,
what
my
are you
response,
guys thinking?
My response would be, yeah, I agree with you. The controversy, is Rachel Zegler's skin the right color to play Snow White? Is it politically correct for us to have human beings play dwarfs, or should they be computer generated? And all the other there's controversy about Gal Gadot's political
Hmm.
stuff because she's from Israel and is a strong supporter of Israel. Yeah, none of that. Frankly, when I talked about the movie with you guys, didn't mention any of that stuff. None of
Yeah.
that matters to my review. None of that matters to my enjoyment of the film. None of that matters to whether or not I would tell people to bother to go see the film. I mean, sure, I guess there's some actors who do things where you go, you need to not see their films because they are a problematic individual.
Yes.
I haven't seen a Woody Allen film. It's been a long time since I saw a Woody Allen film. But I don't think it's part of the conversation here because people want to make it part of the conversation, not because it should be part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's
to
just
go.
my thing. Is it being baffling to me that like the thing people want to have, like, you know, we talked about Mickey 17 and like our various different opinions on it, but like it's wild in this like a month removed from a like Bong Joon-ho movie that essentially is like a MAGA satire, that like the most politically charged movie in America is like a Disney movie, and like that to me of like whatever you're thinking is like
Aimed at 8-year-olds.
right, is like
Yeah.
is our culture broken of like we need to grow up and like start arguing about like adult stuff, even if it's
So yeah,
frivolous adult stuff.
yeah. Well, A, 100%, totally agree. B, just for the sake of conversation, like not to be fair it, but this is what happens when you treat every mega budget movie as a 4 quadrant blockbuster.
Yes.
When it has to appeal to literally every moviegoer, that's you inviting, hey, 40-year-old man, give me your opinion on Snow White. It's like, no, as a 43-year-old man, we don't need that.
Yeah.
We don't need your opinion on Snow White. You don't need my opinion on Snow White. I
We've-
will be happy to talk about it.
We've
But
eventized like I think Disney being kind of like the chief box office, you know, juggernaut for like the last, you know, for most of the 2010s, because I feel like it kind of has like fumbled a little bit in the last few years and they've had some huge bombs, but like
Well, in fairness, they purchased Star Wars, they purchased Marvel,
Yeah.
they purchased Pixar. They basically bought their way to being the biggest.
right. And so them being the biggest means like that's got the most marketing power, and so that becomes like I don't know, this weird thing of like the for lack of a better word, what we would think of as children's movies. I don't mean that like derogatory, but like that has become the center of culture, and now we have this weird reaction culture on top of that where it is like, you know, we can get into like the people online being like, when am I going to get the R-rated Spider-Man movie that's going to have
Yeah.
boobs and violence in it for the adults? Be like, why do you want that? Why do you want
Yeah.
that?
Well,
Go see an adult
so
movie.
so the other thing I would say just really really quickly, and then we can move on because I know Jesse, you got some other topics we want to hit. I here's a hot take for you. Pixar ruined traditional animated films, and by that I mean when we got Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Ratatouille, The Incredibles. These were animated films that Josh's little kids and my little kids loved. And you know what? I loved them too because they found a magic formula to be able to appeal to a 6-year-old and a 60-year-old at the same time. And that ain't easy to do.
No.
And so now we expect all our kids' movies, all our animated blockbusters to do the same thing. And it's a really hard needle to thread. And Pixar managed to do it for like 8 or 10 movies in a row, and we
Right.
just were unbelievable.
They couldn't even keep up the run
Right.
of that if like
Yeah.
it's that hard.
But
Yeah.
it's also it's a run that expanded over multiple generations so that people like me who saw these as a teenager could show them to my kids, and it made us think that's the standard. And as the guy who's sort of in the middle of the age range here, I find it very hard to believe, I guess, Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong, where there are people in the 80s going, I really need to know what Pauline Kael thinks of The Land Before Time.
Yeah, or
You know,
like
no.
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 Like damn, Roger Ebert has a review of Oliver and Company. I got to be sure to watch that.
Yeah. Nobody cared.
Josh, that may have been the greatest sentence you've ever uttered. That was-
That's a soundbite. That's we're trimming that out and making that.